All right, you and I are diving straight into the action. How did our main character end up surrounded by so many loot chests with a creepy presence lurking right behind him? He spots an injured player inside. To survive this long, that guy must be incredibly strong. Part of him wants to steal his loot, but survival comes first. Time to run. And, yep, there really was someone hiding. The guy is thanking God he survived, convinced he would have won easily if he was not injured. Poor guy goes right back to looting. That is when our hero sneaks up and bashes his skull. As a former army sergeant, his survival instincts are elite. But how did he even end up in this madness? Well, let us look at our veteran. Even though he is an ordinary Korean guy, 23-year-old Jin Soo has been out of the military for 6 months, obsessed with reading fantasy manhwa. Now, he has to prepare for college. But ever since his discharge, he basically lives at the internet cafe. In just 3 months of grinding, he actually hit the top 10 leaderboard. The game is called Royal Ground. 100 players drop from the sky, scavenge for weapons, and slaughter each other until only one remains. And our guy is completely hooked. Even when his teammate dies, he still wipes out entire squads. At the end of a match, 2 enemies team up against Jin Soo, pushing into his building. They see loot scattered across the floor and think the coast is clear. Big mistake. Jin Soo is a seasoned pro, waiting silently in the shadows. When the enemy tries to run, Jin Soo instantly drops him with a clean headshot. Victory. But checking the time, he realized school starts tomorrow. Right then his mom texts him, sending some pocket money. Walking home, he feels a wave of guilt for wasting his life. Lying in bed, he promises himself that today was the last game, before drifting off to sleep. The next morning, his friend is spamming him to get online. Just as he is debating whether to skip class, a bizarre purple light erupts, swallowing him whole and leaving only his backpack behind. What on earth is this place? He wakes up surrounded by a massive crowd and a towering statue, wondering if this is divine punishment for skipping school. And why is it so chaotic? People are literally dueling, mages are slinging spells, and others are sharpening swords. He genuinely thinks he stumbled into some hardcore cosplay convention. But reality hits hard. The massive statue booms, detecting exactly 100 players, and immediately begins a language synchronization process for everyone. Suddenly, they can all understand each other, but the chaos does not stop. A furious mage demands to know who summoned him, unleashing his rage, though the undead do not seem to care at all. With a roar, the archmage launches a devastating spell at the undead warrior, but to his absolute confusion, nothing happens. Well, yeah, because the guy is already dead. And now, pay attention, because this is where the survival nightmare officially begins. The game is set to easy difficulty, but only the top 90 survive. The battleground is the capital city, and the top 10 will secure a bonus reward. The tutorial is skipped, PvP is temporarily disabled, and they get a map. Welcome to Close Survival, a 100-day battle royale where the playable area shrinks daily. Fight to be the last one standing, because if you die, you go back to the real world. Failing to make the top 90 means losing access to Close Survival forever. Jin Soo quickly realizes this is exactly like Royal Ground, but with one insanely dangerous twist. The people here are ridiculously overpowered. Is he really the only normal human? Even if it is a dream, he is not about to die. Suddenly, a massive brute barks at him, demanding to know where he is from, getting instantly ticked off when Jin Soo ignores him. With 2 seconds left, the countdown begins. Jin Soo just laughs, boasting that his gaming knowledge will easily let him dominate everyone and survive. And just like that, the survival match officially kicks off. Instantly, players plummet from the sky like blazing meteors. Most of them are diving straight down, aiming for the high-tier loot zones. But our boy Jin Soo knows better than a hot drop. He plays it safe, aiming for an isolated area. The moment he descends, he crashes into the dirt like a lightning bolt, immediately freezing in place. Feeling sick from the rough landing, he rushes straight toward a nearby house. But suddenly, he hears a strange noise, realizing he forgot to check if anyone landed near him. If one of those crazy mages landed nearby, he is completely done for, without a weapon. He slams the door shut, wheezing like he is in a high-stakes survival challenge. Now he seriously regrets mocking that giant brute, fearing the guy might have actually followed him down. But looking out the window, it is just the howling wind. Relieved, he immediately starts searching the rooms for loot. Suddenly, his hands hit something heavy. It is a massive steel crossbow, matching its description perfectly. He grabs some bolts, and the moment his fingers touch it, the exact instructions flash in his mind. For a veteran sergeant, using this weapon is basic training. He pulls the trigger, and the bolt flies out like a missile. This is definitely no ordinary crossbow. This thing packs enough firepower to compete with a tank. If he masters it, he will be unstoppable. Finding nothing else of value, he decides to sweep the next building. Now, let us watch how he plays this. He cracks the door open, scouting for enemies, before snatching up a mystical healing scroll that can literally patch up any wound. But what he really needs is some armor or a backpack. Suddenly, he spots a soft glow in the corner. It is a Dark Star Chi Palm martial arts manual. He instantly taps to learn the skill, and the book floats up, shredding itself into dust. Suddenly, a strange sensation washes over his hands. His normal, everyday hands suddenly feel calloused and worn, as if he has been training intensely for years. When he picks up a simple dining fork, he throws it with the force of a gunshot. Did he really master martial arts that easily? Talk about convenient plot armor. Pulling the fork out of the wall, our hero smiles, highly satisfied. He realizes this is basically a real-life roguelike game. And if martial arts books exist, there must be legendary magic spell books hidden around here too. After clearing out the entire house, he slips back outside. Night has fallen, and after a long day of gathering gear, our protagonist is desperate to find a safe spot to hide. That is when he spots something highly suspicious. One of the nearby houses has a light shining inside, suggesting a rare treasure might be waiting. But a bright light also means someone might already be camping there. Even without knowing how many enemies are nearby, Jin Su is certain the occupant is either an elite hunter or a complete amateur. Since the first floor looks completely deserted, our main character assumes his target is waiting upstairs on the second floor. Grip tightening on his trusty crossbow, he finds confidence in his new Dark Star skill, knowing it gives him a fighting chance even against a master. Creeping slowly up the creaky stairs, he prepares for a sudden ambush. Then, he finally sees the source of the glow. Realizing it is just a simple lantern, he hesitates, wondering if he is walking straight into a trap. But right beside it, he notices a closed door. He hesitates for a brief second, but decides to take the plunge and forces his way into the room. To his surprise, the place is dead silent. And that's where we leave him for now, breathing a massive sigh of relief on the floor. It turns out he completely overreacted, but you and I know the real danger is still waiting right outside. Alright, you and I are diving into a wild survival game where our hero just found a strength-boosting ring in a drawer. Intrigued by the stat boost, our crossbow user quickly slips it on and instantly feels the magic work. His heavy body suddenly feels light as a feather, and even his bulky weapon feels completely weightless in his hands now. Realizing he just got a major power-up, he pulls up his status window to check his progress. But even with the new boost, the young man's overall stats are still pretty pathetic. Still, learning a martial arts skill officially makes him a martial artist in the game's eyes. Seowin is just happy to have anything at all, considering he started this deathmatch with absolutely nothing. With his hands free, he scavenges the ground floor and stumbles upon another treasure. This is the second ring he has uncovered in this abandoned house, and it is a spatial storage item. To open it, he just needs to hold it and think the word subspace while pressing the gem. But of course, there is a catch. This handy pocket dimension has a strictly limited inventory capacity. Our hero immediately summons the portal to test it out. This strange ring is incredibly convenient, saving him the massive headache of dragging his heavy gear around. He secretly wishes a broken item like this existed back on Earth. Jin Se-won starts imagining the sweet life he could live back in the real world if he manages to return with these insane gaming skills and gear. Next, he checks the server's global kill log to see if the slaughter has already started. He finds it instantly, and seeing 99 players are left, he decides to keep farming until that number drops to 90. Searching the rest of the dusty building, he loots some handy consumables and concealed weapons that will synergize perfectly with his lethal Dark Star ability. Now, he faces a tough choice: hunker down for the night or risk heading out to loot another spot. He knows the absolute psychos from the lobby will be hunting under the cover of darkness. But since brutal combat is the only path to the top 10, our guy desperately hopes to find more high-value loot zones. Betting that fewer players will risk traveling tonight, Se-won decides to hit one final landmark. As he walks, he realizes just how broken that strength ring is. He has been marching for hours and feels absolutely zero fatigue. Unfortunately, this survival game is brutally realistic. Even if physical exhaustion is not an issue, hunger and thirst are very real threats he still has to manage. With nothing edible in sight, he wonders if some nearby cabin might hold a stash of food. But right as he pulls up his map to find the nearest shelter, a terrifying growling echoes through the trees. Pay attention right here, because his blood completely freezes as he senses a presence stalking him. Panicking, he dives behind a tree, unable to pinpoint where the predator is hiding. Peeking out, he instantly recognizes the monstrous beast locking eyes with him. It is a massive, bloodthirsty werewolf. Pure panic floods Seo-won's mind as he bolts for his life, while the creature lunges to tear him apart. Its razor-sharp claws easily shred through solid wood, and worse, there are two of them hunting in perfect sync. This player versus player deathmatch apparently features deadly monsters too. Our hero would have never stepped foot outside if he knew these terrifying beasts were patrolling the map. As a legendary former top 10 player in Rogue, dying to basic mobs right at the start would be a humiliating embarrassment. Luckily, he spots an old cabin up ahead, sprints like his life depends on it, and barely manages to lock himself inside. But luck is not on his side, as the beasts have tracked him right to his doorstep. Cornered, he tries to formulate a quick strategy and takes a cautious peek outside. Watching them sniff the air, he realizes they are tracking his scent. Knowing he cannot hide forever, he decides that a preemptive strike is his best shot at survival, raising his heavy crossbow and aiming directly at the pack. Taking steady aim from behind the wooden walls, our hero fires a shot. Boom. He lands a clean headshot, instantly putting down one of the giant werewolves. One threat is down. Thanks to his handy strength ring, reloading the heavy crossbow is an absolute breeze. But as he rushes to load another bolt to finish off the second beast, a wave of pure horror washes over him. The beast knows exactly where he is. He desperately throws himself backward to avoid a massive, razor-sharp claw, but he is just a split second too slow and gets slashed across the face. Now the werewolf has breached the house, lunging at him with pure bloodlust. Siwon frantically tries to get a shot off, but the beast cleverly blocks the projectile by shielding its head with its massive arm. Now, you might think he is completely done for here, but even in this desperate moment, he smartly summons his subspace inventory to pull off a wild counterattack. He whips out a hidden dagger and unleashes his Darkstar ambush skill, driving the blade deep into the monster's chest. The force of the strike is so intense that the knife pierces right through the wolf and bends against the stone wall. Determined to survive at all costs, Jin Seo-won refuses to get taken down by some random computer mobs, Clutch winning an insane 2 versus 1 showdown. Faced with those terrifying werewolves, he genuinely thought his journey was over. The sheer adrenaline rush leaves his legs shaking and unable to stand. Honestly, if it wasn't for those throwing daggers, a simple mob would have ended our hero's run. That is when he spots a glowing pouch left behind on the floor. Realizing this is a classic monster drop containing food and water, he happily discovers that hunting is a viable way to feed himself in this death game. While eating his drop jerky, Seo-won decides to thoroughly search the rest of the cabin. Soon, he uncovers some rare body armor that resembles a bulletproof vest. Though it looks way too big for his scrawny frame at first, the magical armor instantly shrinks to fit him. The system identifies it as the superior orichalcum armor, granting him massive magic resistance to both fire and wind. Seo-won is thoroughly impressed as the armor significantly boosts his overall attributes. Feeling lucky, he is convinced this cabin still has more secrets to yield. Suddenly, his hand brushes against something solid even though there is absolutely nothing visible. Realizing it must be a hidden item, he grabs hold of a mysterious invisible cloth. When he drapes it over his shoulders, the system reveals its true name, the Mantle of the Gods, a legendary item that lets the wearer blend perfectly into the shadows when stationary. With the ability to block tracking magic and erase his presence entirely, Siwon is ecstatic. This god-tier item is the ultimate survival tool, allowing him to traverse the dangerous night without a single enemy noticing. Eager to see what this cheat item can do, the young man heads back out to test the legendary cloak, confident it will carry him far. Finding that old cabin in the woods was a massive stroke of luck, hooking him up with god-tier loot on just day 2. As the night deepens, Siwon guesses the only reason he hasn't run into other players yet is because he spawned on the outer edges of the map. But right as he relaxes, a terrified scream cuts through the night. A heavily injured player is running for his life. The scarred runner desperately regrets not having enough time to activate a trump card item to defeat his pursuer. Meanwhile, our hero, completely hidden beneath his cloak of invisibility, quietly watches from the safety of the shadows. The scarred survivor is furious about running into an overpowered mage. Realizing this panicked guy is clearly an inexperienced amateur, our protagonist knows this is a golden opportunity to easily eliminate him. Jin Seo-won desperately tries to convince himself that this is just a harmless game, not a real murder. But right then, a sinister magical chant echoes through the forest. A massive fireball roars right past our hero's hiding spot. The scarred player has zero time to react before he is engulfed in flames and instantly burned to a crisp. At first, Seo-won genuinely thinks he just witnessed a brutal murder. But what happens next is wild. As he wonders who fired that shot, a treasure chest suddenly spawns right where the corpse just was, proving once and for all that you and I are in a deadly video game. You and I are about to jump into a brutal survival game, where one wrong step means death. Right now, a savage mage in a red hat walks right past our hidden hero. Annoyed his first strike didn't kill the poor, stable hand instantly. C was absolutely blown away by his new cloak. An enemy was standing right next to him, yet he remained completely invisible. The arrogant mage, Karen, muttered that the victim should feel honored to die by his hand. Without wasting a second, he ran to open the drop chest. As a mere beginner, our hero knew he could easily be wiped out next. This brutal reality check made him realize one thing: hesitate for a second, and you die. Right then, he made his choice. Jin's wound would do whatever it took to survive. Meanwhile, Karen was celebrating over the loot from his victim's chest until a sudden chill ran down his spine. A fast projectile slammed directly into his magic barrier. Karen realized his loud hunting had backfired, drawing the unwanted attention of a nearby player. C1 unleashed another shot before the mage could even react. If this pressure kept up, that magical barrier was going to shatter. While our hero stayed completely cool in the shadows, the fire user started to panic. Trying to guess where the sniper was hiding, he threw a wild fireball. Screaming in rage, the mage challenged his unseen enemy to come out and fight like a real man. The brutal response: a throwing knife flying straight at the clueless young mage. Before he could even register the incoming attack, his defensive barrier shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces. Completely defenseless now, Chiron panicked, screaming for his enemy to face him. But Seal Wound wasn't taking the bait, he stayed perfectly hidden. Desperate, the fire user began channeling a powerful spell to turn the tide. But watch closely here. Before he could even finish his chant, a sniper arrow pierced his head, blowing it apart instantly. Jin So-woon had won. The dead player faded away, leaving only a loot chest behind. Knowing he couldn't risk getting caught, Si-woon looted the chest at lightning speed and fled. Inside, he found some amazing items, including a medium healing scroll. He also grabbed a pure gold necklace from the Magic Council, completely useless to him right now, but worth taking anyway. That's when something highly intriguing caught his eye inside the other chest. It was a circle stone, a legendary item that embeds a magic circle around the heart to generate mana. Realizing it would also grant him elemental circle magic, the young man knew this was his golden ticket to finally becoming a true mage. This made him realize that the burnt-faced mage simply didn't have enough time to use this powerful item before he died. So felt a little sorry for the guy, but gladly kept the loot, packing everything into his subspace storage. Now, he needed to find a safe hiding spot to activate this new power. Soon, he found a decent, abandoned house. Slipping inside, he immediately activated the circle stone. According to the system, the process would require him to do absolutely nothing. But it would take 3 hours, with the system warning of potential slight pain. And right on cue, the agony began to set in. Solon fought with everything he had to muffle his screams during 3 hellish hours of absolute agony. The system definitely lied about it being slight. He almost passed out. Realizing magic was way harder to master than martial arts, Sean opened his status window. He smiled, seeing he had officially unlocked his very first mana stat. I know what you're thinking, there must be tons of players left, right? Well, think again. Opening the survivor list, our sniper was left completely stunned. Over half of them were already dead. Checking the kill log, he saw a single name dominating the feed: Nam Sagwang. Just a little earlier, another player named Ayan was desperately running for his life from this monster. Unfortunately for him, his terrifying pursuer absolutely loved the thrill of the hunt. Suddenly, Ayan tripped over a stone and crashed face first onto the hard ground. Defenseless, the swordsman begged for his life, desperately wanting to be one of the remaining 90 survivors. He pleaded from the bottom of his heart, not wanting to die here. But his desperate pleas fell on deaf ears as Nam Sagwang blew his head completely apart. Just like that, this infamous player strolled away, leaving behind nothing but the loot chest of his latest victim. By the third day, 54 players had been wiped out in a single night. Our hero wisely decided to stay far away from Nam Sagwang, the monster behind most of the carnage. But then, a clever thought struck him: he could actually use this chaos to sneak into the top 10. He wondered what amazing prizes the top 10 would get, hoping he could bring some game items back to the real world. But he quickly shook off the daydream. Remembering a serial killer was on the loose, he had to focus on surviving first. While finishing his preparations to move locations, the young man wondered if the power sleeping inside his body was ready for the magic skill book he had acquired yesterday. It was a windball spellbook, which lets the user create destructive wind spheres based on their own power. Without hesitating, he immediately learned the magic skill. Nothing happened at first, but suddenly, the incantations flooded his mind. Smiling, he began to chant the magic words to activate the spell for the first time. 4 tiny wind spheres manifested in front of him. Feeling a bit underwhelmed, he casually tossed them aside. but suddenly, boom, they exploded with a massive burst of wind. These tiny spheres packed an absolute punch, making them incredibly useful. However, casting that single spell drained his entire mana pool, leaving him instantly exhausted. As time ticked down, the safe zone began to shrink, forcing our hero to roam the edges, searching for extra loot. Woon figured he wouldn't run into many players since the lobby was half dead, and he wanted to loot as fast as possible before the safe zone closed in. But little did he know, someone was watching his every move from high above. The mysterious watcher was deeply intrigued and slipped away. After half a day of travel, our hero arrived at a small cluster of houses and froze at the sight. Dozens of abandoned chests littered the area, proving a bloodbath had just occurred. Suddenly, his sharp instincts picked up on a terrifying presence nearby. Acting fast, he used his magic to blast a nearby door with his windball explosives. He tried to shake off the paranoia, assuming an enemy was waiting to ambush him, but then he noticed something very strange. Peering inside the ruined house, he saw fresh blood splattered everywhere. An injured player was definitely hiding somewhere inside. C knew anyone who survived this long had to be dangerous, but the temptation of easy loot from a wounded player was hard to resist. Ultimately, he chose safety, quickly turning back and slipping away. With survival as his ultimate goal, the hiding player waited until he was absolutely sure the invisible threat had gone before finally crawling out of his corner. He had hidden himself at the very last second to avoid detection. Annoyed that he missed an easy kill on our seemingly weak hero, the man decided to quickly grab the remaining loot chests before moving on. But out of nowhere, a silent arrow pierced his skull. By the time the realization hit him, it was already far too late. Just like that, our sniper's clever trap worked like a charm. And that's where we leave our hero, looting the chests before heading toward the map's safe edge. Alright, you and I are jumping right into a wild moment where our main character is suddenly startled by a voice praising his survival skills. Woon completely panics, thinking he is about to be ambushed. But this mysterious old man quickly reassures him that he just wants to ask a few questions. When asked for his name, the old man says introductions are useless, since they both come from two completely different realities. This is the very first time Jin Si-won has ever met someone like this in Cloud, and as the sun starts to set, the old master asks our guy if he has ever played this game before. He reveals he has been watching our hero fast-track his progress from a distance, asking if he realizes none of this is actually real. Stunned that he did not sense him sooner, Jin Si-won admits this is his first match, though his home world has plenty of similar virtual games. The nameless elder is absolutely blown away, finally realizing this kid standing in front of him truly crossed over from another dimension. Just then, Jin Si-won and the elder notice Night 3 has officially fallen. When asked about the moon back on Earth, the boy suddenly realizes the moon in this sky is ridiculously, unbelievably massive. As it turns out, the moon back in both of their home worlds is way smaller than the gigantic one glowing right above them. The old-timer admits he finds our hero fascinating, but Jin points out they are sitting ducks for an ambush. To keep the chat going safely, the nameless master suggests they immediately head to a much better hiding spot. Our hero tries demanding some guarantee that he is not about to be betrayed, but the old man completely ignores him, telling him to shut his mouth. He then starts leaping effortlessly through the treetops, warning that absolute silence is their only shot at staying alive. Yeah, the master is moving way too fast for our unathletic gaming protagonist, but somehow, they safely make it to a new spot. Right now, our guy has absolutely no clue how heavily this meeting will impact his future. Huddled high up in a tree and terrified of heights, Si-won explains that modern humans have created simulated worlds exactly like this. Jin Se-won starts wondering just how long this powerful elder has been tracking him, since he apparently saw his rapid growth firsthand. Now pay attention, because the master actually answers his unspoken question, explaining they both spawned in the exact same zone. At first, he just wanted a peaceful, completely solo match. But he ended up observing our hero, hoping to ask him why on earth they were pulled into this place. Seeing that a modern human is just as clueless, the elder gets confused, since his own world supposedly has nothing like this. Our main character clarifies that back home, games are completely harmless, and literally nobody knows what the mastermind behind this death game is actually planning. The old-timer catches on immediately, but interestingly, he points out that this twisted match could be a golden ticket for someone. According to Jin, players do not stay dead here, and those finishing in the top 10 get to keep all the incredible loot they collected. The elder realizes the kid is talking about weapon gear, legendary martial arts, and active skills. Jin Si-won explains that while the master probably lives comfortably, getting magical powers is his absolute only ticket out of a miserable life. It is obvious this elder is a revered martial arts god, light years away from our desperate hero who just wants to escape poverty. Panicking, Siwon desperately tries to hush the nameless master, who just bursts out laughing. But as they keep talking, they realize they do not even know how to open the map. So, Jin, Siwon, and the master spend the whole night talking, with our boy explaining every game mechanic in detail. By the time morning arrives, they finally climb back down to the forest floor. The elder apologizes for eating up so much of his time, but Jin does not mind at all. He loved hearing the master's stories, plus hiding next to a powerhouse is incredibly safe. Since he learns so much about the survival rules, the grateful old master asks the young man how he can repay the favor. Seizing the chance, our protagonist immediately asks to learn the master's martial arts to survive the tournament. The expert ponders for a second, then drops a heavy truth bomb, warning him that things are about to get complicated. According to the master, Sa-woon must literally prepare himself to face death. You and I both know nothing comes for free, right? The master asks if he is ready to take this massive risk. He warns that any shortcut to godlike power demands a brutal, heavy price. When asked if he is ready, Jin Si-won remembers that real death does not exist in this digital arena. If dying here is not permanent, then this crazy method is totally worth trying. Feeling hopeful, Jin listens as the master agrees to help. But the moment the elder checks his pupil's inner energy, or chi, he is left completely and utterly dumbfounded. The kid is so weak that even the old man's dog has more inner energy than him. Hey, coming from a magicless earth does that to you. The boy sits cross-legged, and the ritual is set. The master warns him that the oncoming agony will be absolute torture, and he cannot move a muscle. If he fails to endure this horrifying pain, his heart will literally stop. Instantly, his senses become so sharp that the cool night air feels like razor-sharp blades slashing his skin, and inhaling feels like breathing molten lava. Suddenly, a bizarre and intense feeling washes over him. Jin Si-won screams out in pure, unadulterated agony. The torture is so intense that the poor kid genuinely believes he is about to die. But then, it happens. Sinking deeper into this state, his hyper-enhanced senses suddenly allow him to perceive both himself and the master. Despite his mind screaming in agony, his physical body remains completely, eerily motionless. Just like that, the nightmare ends. But the sheer shock of it leaves our hero gagging and clutching his stomach. The master tells him that surviving this hellish ordeal proves he has incredible potential. Everything changes now because the elder has completely restructured the flow of ki inside his young body. To help Jin gain power rapidly, the master actually sacrificed a piece of his own soul to forge an absorption gate. Normally, humans can only gather chi slowly through standard breathing. But this chi code gate changes the game entirely. The master explains that our physical flesh, mind, and spirit are all fundamentally linked together by raw, vital energy. He asks Jin what he thinks happens to all that life energy when a person dies. The boy guesses it just disappears, but the old master shakes his head. When someone dies, their scattered energy behaves like a droplet of water shattering on the floor. It returns right back to nature to keep the circle of life going. But historically, some greedy martial artists found this to be a waste, so they started slaughtering others to steal their life force. But since that stolen power was not native, many lost their minds or died from internal energy clashes. Yet, the old man has just handed our young protagonist the key to using this exact dark ability. Si-won shivers, realizing he was inches away from death. But the master explains he is safe because he will absorb energy through a soul gate. Plus, his zero-ki body has been physically reshaped into the absolute perfect vessel to store all that harvested chi. Jin immediately puts two and two together, realizing the master gave him this forbidden method specifically for this survival game. The nameless elder noticed earlier that dead players leave behind lingering energy pools. So, while this soul-stealing technique is normally pure evil in the real world, it is actually the ultimate cheat code for a brutal battle royale. And trust me, you and I are going to witness an absolute monster rise if he keeps harvesting souls to survive until the end. Alright, you and I are about to watch a weak kid turn into an absolute legend. As his master prepares to leave, our main character, Jin Si-won, begs to know the identity of his mysterious savior. Introducing himself as the serene immortal, Jang Daochen, the old master reveals that the forbidden technique he just passed down is called the unrestrained inner energy technique. Deeply grateful for this massive gift, our hero gets some parting advice to train hard and slowly build up his power. Meanwhile, Daochen opens up a highly detailed map provided by the gamer. The old master promises they will meet again before vanishing into thin air. Honestly, it is no surprise to our hidden sniper that a legendary figure like him could disappear in the blink of an eye. Seeing that speed makes him wish he had a movement technique of his own. But for now, Si-won focuses on the survival game, heading straight toward the edge of the safe zone. While the master traveled across the massive map instantly, our solo hero is forced to walk for half a day just to reach the borders of this insanely huge playable area. Suddenly, he spots a lit cabin. This either means the place is totally abandoned, or a complete amateur is hiding inside with zero survival skills. Determined to take the cabin, Siwon creeps inside. He moves like a ghost, doing his absolute best to avoid making even a single sound. Sighing in relief, he puts out the lantern. But the loot is a major letdown. Aside from a safe shelter, he only finds a bit of food and a minor healing scroll. Exhausted from spending the entire night talking with the old master, Siwon realizes he desperately needs some sleep and decides to finally pass out for the night. Our player gets a peaceful night of rest. But as day 5 dawns, watch closely because his quiet morning is about to be shattered by the sudden sound of heavy footsteps. An intruder has entered his hideout. Groggily waking up from oversleeping, a startled Siwon panics and scrambles to grab his crossbow before it is too late. Just as a roaming warrior slides the door open looking for a quick rest, he freezes in absolute shock to find a loaded crossbow aimed directly at his face. Our hero pulls the trigger, but this samurai is incredibly fast, slicing the bolt midair. Finding the cabin already occupied thoroughly annoys the hostile warrior. Our hero immediately counters by unleashing a barrage of throwing knives. Tanking the hits, the charging samurai mocks him for relying on cheap, hidden weapons. But Siwon grabs him by the head, slamming him face first into the dirt before kicking the sword far out of his reach. Extremely annoyed that his sweet dreams were ruined, our hero glares at the intruder who is now begging for mercy. Handing over all his gear, the defeated warrior whines about how hard survival is. But our cold sniper does not care. He mercilessly drives a blade into the samurai's head, ending the player named Xiaolong right then and there to secure his own survival. Standing over his latest kill, our hero spots something strange. The loot chest left behind by the dead warrior is glowing with a mysterious green aura. He instantly recognizes this as the inner energy his master spoke of. It even clings to the blood on his fingers. Our hero is finally touching real chi. Suddenly, the absorption begins. Siwon feels an explosive rush of power surging through his veins as he absorbs his very first drop of vital energy. Absorbing energy from just one player makes him feel incredibly light and powerful. Rushing to check his system interface, he sees a brand new internal energy stat with 20 active points. Now, he is incredibly grateful for the old man's gift, fueling his determination to harvest even more energy without always having to get his hands dirty. Curious about the remaining player count, he opens up the global kill feed, only to freeze in utter shock. By day 5, a staggering 76 players have already been completely wiped out. You and I both know this game is brutal, but look at the screen as the survivor count instantly drops from 24 to 23. Nam Sagwong just slaughtered someone named Calvert Stappen. In another corner of the map, another player takes his final breath, whispering the name of his murderer before dissolving into a simple chest of loot. Nam Sagwang is highly disappointed that his attacker was so weak. Annoyed, he glances at the active kill log to see that only 22 players are left standing. Oddly enough, our main character's name in the log catches the killer's attention. Meanwhile, our hero makes a mental note to avoid this absolute monster at all costs. Knowing he stands zero chance after barely surviving a fight with a low-tier player, our hero decides to quickly search the house before the map boundaries shrink any further. Looking at the samurai's garbage loot, he realizes that the guy could have easily won their battle if he had just possessed slightly better gear. Our hero decides to play it safe and lay low until the player count drops. Fast forward 7 days, and Siwon realizes just how lucky he was at the start. For a whole week, all the loot he collected from wild beasts was total garbage. But by staying on the move and hugging the map's outer edges, our sniper managed to avoid any deadly enemy encounters. By day 12, Siwon is utterly sick of eating dry jerky. Staring down a massive bear, he notes that the total survivor count has now dwindled to just 20 players. Stretching his hand beyond the barrier instantly paralyzes it, reminding him he'll freeze to death outside. He realizes everyone is playing defensively now, except for that one absolute maniac who keeps on slaughtering. Suddenly, our hero spots something intriguing. Seeing a massive cloud of dust rising in the distance, Siwon deduces that an epic battle must be going on right now. The madman is surrounded. A large group of high-tier players have actually banded together with one single goal, to hunt down and destroy Nam Sagwang. The kid finds it hilarious that they are ganging up on him, but he is glad it saves him the trouble of tracking them down. Nam Sagwang coldly asks the group if they are truly prepared to die today. With a massive leap, the boy launches himself high into the air. At first, the players think their target is trying to run away, but instead, he grabs a player's head and pops it like a balloon. As horror grips the surviving crowd, the insane kid immediately moves to claim his next victim. In the blink of an eye, the madman tears through the crowd. This is not even a battle anymore. It is a complete and utter massacre as players get butchered left and right. The rising kill feed makes it clear that unless someone stops him, Nam Sagwang will easily win this whole game. Meanwhile, our stunned protagonist watches in horror as the maniac stacks up kill after kill. Seeing this insane display, our hero wonders if the guy is somehow using a literal cheat code. Ultimately, the weak players stood absolutely no chance against him. The young killer is just annoyed that he got covered in the sticky blood of his victims. Annoyed, the killer leaves to find a place to wash up. Hours pass, night falls, and a brand new figure finally arrives at the bloody scene. And as this mysterious elf vows to avenge his fallen comrade, 89 players are dead, leaving you and I to wait and see who survives this ultimate bloodbath. Alright, you and I are diving back in as our hero needs just one more player to drop to hit the top 10. But to survive the unstoppable Nam Sagang, he desperately needs some serious gear upgrades. He spots a massive mansion that is scheduled to be swallowed by the Forbidden Zone by tomorrow morning. Rushing inside, he hopes this will be his very last quiet spot to farm some decent loot. Someone cautiously creeps inside to ensure the coast is clear. The interior takes his breath away. Compared to the tiny shacks he raided earlier, this place is absolutely massive and dripping in pure luxury. He stumbles upon a set of Royal Guard armor requiring a whopping 110 strength. Since C1 only has a measly 30, he has no choice but to leave this epic gear behind. Searching further, he uncovers an incredible item, an elixir of insight. This rare potion will boost his internal energy, and best of all, its cooldown reset is only 3 hours. This awesome find has him wondering if this mansion is just a gold mine of legendary loot. He even uncovers a secret manual for a powerful technique called Secrets of the Unbreakable Fist. Just as he realizes he needs a safe spot like the Circle Stone to practice, his foot taps against something hollow in the floor. Intrigued, Siyu discovers a hidden passage to the Dimensions warehouse. But right as he prepares to step inside, a massive explosion tears the building apart. Before he can even process the blast, pure survival instinct kicks in, and he hurls himself out of the window. His head is swimming from the chaos, but he miraculously survives, crashing face first into the nearby bushes. He lies there in the dirt, completely baffled, because he was absolutely certain nobody had followed him here. But then, as he looks up, something unbelievable catches his eye. Now watch closely because our hero recognizes that mage from the lobby. The elf is impressed, pointing out that surviving a blast like that proves his target is the real deal. Floating up into the air, the arrogant elf sneers, swearing he will never forget the name Nam Sagang. But Nam Sagang just scoffed, telling the wizard to stop talking trash. Nam Sagwang tells him to shut up and fight already since he has no time to waste. The elf smirks, warning him that his confidence won't last long. The warrior seems amused by the wizard's big talk. Meanwhile, watching from the bushes, Jin Siwoon is shocked to see that the legendary player-slaying Nam Sa Guang is actually just a young kid. Annoyed by his attitude, the mage decides it is time for a reality check. Our hidden protagonist can only watch in awe as these two monsters clash, with Escrow summoning literal lightning from the heavens. He channels the raw electrical energy, raining deadly bolts straight down. Below him, the young martial artist is forced into a desperate dance, dodging one explosive blast after another. Frustrated by his target's slippery movement, the mage taunts him to fight back, daring him to show the same aggression he used to beat Elizabeth. For the first time ever, the talented prodigy is facing an opponent with this level of overwhelming magic. Fed up with all the dodging, the irritated mage decides to unleash one of his ultimate spells to wrap this battle up once and for all. Suddenly, a devastating electrical tempest blankets the entire battlefield. Nam Sagong instantly knows that letting even a single bolt touch him means immediate elimination. Yet, he keeps his cool, calculating every move as he weaves through the chaos. With a sudden burst of speed, the fighter leaps high into the air. The spellcaster is stunned. Despite being high up in the sky, Nam Sagwang somehow manages to leap right into his face. Bracing his body, the young warrior prepares to deliver a devastating final strike. The mage boasts that raw strength can never pierce his magical barrier, swinging his staff to slice the young challenger right in half. It looks like the top player is done for, but his body suddenly fades away. It was just a clever illusion. Meanwhile, watching from the side, our hero spots something very interesting. I know what you're thinking. That elf is an absolute cheat code, strong enough to stop a train. Now, Escrow realizes his tracking tools can't find his target, assuming he managed to escape far away. Gritting his teeth, the furious elf swears a loud oath that the next time they cross paths, he will personally end that martial artist's life. Meanwhile, the warrior is sprinting away to safety. For their next battle, Nam Sagawang vows he won't be caught off guard again and plans to put an end to that mage for good. But for now, escaping to rest and recover is his only priority. Back at the ruins, the mage lands and carefully scans the area for any stragglers. Thanks to his stealth cloak, our hero remains completely unseen. Siwon realizes that neither of those two monsters will be coming back to this spot anytime soon. With the coast clear, he quickly finds the hidden entrance. Standing before the dimensional warehouse, Siwon already imagines the incredible treasures and high-tier items waiting inside. The dark staircase leads straight down, completely untouched. Deciding to be the first to explore, he pulls out a lamp he swiped from an earlier house, which turns out to be extremely useful. Reaching the bottom of the steps, he hangs up the light. Siwon has entered a giant food pantry. He is initially disappointed since he wanted powerful gear, not groceries. However, his empty stomach, sick of eating dry jerky, is not complaining. After an hour of non-stop eating, he finally finishes his feast. He really wishes he had some rice to go with it, but beggars can't be choosers. Fully satisfied, he sits down to examine the ancient martial arts manual he secured. Reading the text, he learns it details a dead art created by a mock fighter aiming to perfect fist combat. So-woon feels slightly let down by the description. But just like his dinner, he cannot afford to be picky. Thinking it over, he decides to drink his new elixir before testing out this new style. He hesitates, remembering how excruciating his last upgrade was, but his desperate desire for more power wins out and he downs the elixir in one big gulp. Immediately, the energy surge begins. So-woon feels mana rushing through his veins, though it is far weaker than the intense power he absorbed before. Suddenly, the elixir's side effects kick in, completely paralyzing his body for 3 long hours. After agonizing waiting, feeling returns to his limbs. Sitting through that 3-hour paralysis has left him completely drained and exhausted. After hiding in the woods for 7 days, he is just grateful to have survived that insane clash between monsters. With a heavy sigh, he drifts off to sleep, ending an exhausting day. Now it is day 13. At sunrise, our hero opens the trapdoor and peeks out. Spotting the forbidden zone creeping nearby, he pulls up the system interface to check the current player count. Only 10 survivors are left active in the game. But then, a shocking update pops up on the screen. The kind old man has apparently taken his own life. Suwon guesses his master, knowing death is not permanent in this virtual world, must have attempted some incredibly reckless or insane training technique. It is the only explanation that makes sense. Still, he is disappointed that he reached the top 10 solely because the immortal old man eliminated himself. With the map rapidly shrinking, he needs to relocate before the barrier swallows him alive. Resuming his journey, C1 plans to keep his head down and avoid conflicts entirely. That's where we leave things today as our weak hero tries to play it safe, only to sense danger approaching. Don't blink, because he barely dodges a devastating attack at the very last second. Alright, you and I are about to dive into a moment of pure chaos. A massive fireball almost catches Siwon off guard, and only one name comes to mind. His worst fear is realized. Escrow, the legendary mage, stands right before him. The elf looks disappointed, though. His detection magic didn't find his true target, the mad martial artist, but rather a nameless marksman. Siwon blames himself. He got so caught up in his newly absorbed speed that he let his guard down. The elf demands to know if this weak human has seen the infamous Nam Sagwan. The archmage threatens to execute him right on the spot if he doesn't answer, completely unaware that his target is already right behind him. The elf promises to spare his life only if he gives up the martial artist's location. But our protagonist can only play dumb, claiming he has absolutely no idea where the beast is. Suddenly, something incredible happens. Right as the elf prepares to strike him down, a shadow drops from above with terrifying force. A massive collision shakes the great mage's protective barrier to its absolute core. Escrow is caught completely off guard. Nam Sagwang is back, fully recovered, mocking the mage for running low on mana. Seo-woon can't believe his eyes as this monster joins the fray. With a savage grin, Nam Sagwang decides to finish the job. He throws a devastating punch that shatters the magical barrier like glass. The elf laughs off the attack, claiming a simple punch can't bypass his defenses. But suddenly, blood spurts from his neck. Sagwang coldly asks him if he knows Gangji. This secret technique, known as sujing, is incredibly rare. Sagwang admits he's surprised he even had to use it, telling the elf he should feel honored to experience its deadly power. And just watch closely here. The martial artist literally rips the elf's vocal cords right out. With his throat destroyed, the legendary mage can no longer chant any of his spells. To Sagwang, the elf could have easily ruled this survival game if he hadn't picked the wrong opponent. For our protagonist, this brutal ambush is nothing short of a miracle. Siwoo knows he needs to run while these two powerhouses tear each other apart, yet he can't look away from the spectacle. Right then, the Archmage takes a brutal blade to the gut. The Supreme Mage is now completely at the mercy of this unstoppable martial arts genius. Watching such an absolute titan get utterly humiliated is a hypnotic, terrifying sight. But as Sewon watches, a dark, chilling thought consumes his mind, drowning out all fear. He starts calculating just how insanely powerful he would become if he managed to harvest the life energy of both titans. His sheer obsession with strength is completely taking over. Meanwhile, Sagwang ruthlessly mocks the proud elf, laughing because the dying mage can't even utter his final words. With his throat torn out, Escrow can't speak a single word aloud. Instead, he uses telepathy to confront the martial artist about his beloved student, Elizabeth, whom Sagwang ruthlessly murdered. The old mage recalls how Elizabeth, his prized pupil, was rejected by society and academia alike simply because she was a woman. But Sagwang simply scoffs, saying she must have been disguised as a man, since he doesn't remember killing any girls. With that cold dismissal, the elf prepares his final, desperate counterattack. Sagwang doesn't realize what the dying elf is scheming, but our protagonist senses immediate danger. Sewon's eyes dart straight up toward the heavens. A blazing orange glow splits the sky open. A colossal meteor is descending rapidly onto the battlefield. Sagwang is stunned, since casting should be impossible without a voice. Escrow reveals the truth. A true archmage can sacrifice his own soul and remaining mana to cast Armageddon, his ultimate spell. Instantly, the terrified martial artist bolts, realizing the elf is dragging him to hell. Our weak protagonist does the same, desperately wishing he had fled much sooner. In his final moments, Escrow welcomes death, hoping to reunite with Elizabeth in the afterlife. The archmage passes away, leaving behind a valuable loot chest, right as the meteor impacts the battlefield with absolute earth-shattering force. Miles away, another player witnesses the massive, blinding explosion. To him, there's only one wizard in this entire game capable of unleashing such absolute destruction. Let's pause for a second. Our protagonist ends up in a critical, bloody state because his greed for life energy kept him too close. Still, refusing to die, he rapidly burns through his hoarded healing scrolls to pull himself back from the brink. Thanks to a powerful elixir he drank earlier, he barely escapes the Grim Reaper's clutches. His physical wounds close up, but the phantom pain remains, forcing him to use even more scrolls. After spamming several more, he can finally breathe normally again. This single disaster completely drained his stockpile of healing items. Siwoo opens the system's kill log. Because of the spell, the Archmage's life energy is completely gone, meaning no harvest. But shocking news awaits. Nam Sagwang's name isn't on the list of casualties. He survived. Suddenly, faint, desperate cries for help echo through the ruins. Siwoo creeps forward to investigate the sound, moving silently until he finally stumbles upon the shocking source of the whimpers. What he witnesses next leaves him utterly speechless. The once mighty martial artist is lying there half dead, completely unable to use a healing scroll by himself. Not even a legend like Sagwang could completely escape the meteor's blast radius. He's lost both of his arms, rendering him physically incapable of opening his inventory scrolls. Sensing a presence, the desperate fighter begs the newcomer to activate a scroll for him. But his blood runs cold when the stranger immediately calls out his name, recognizing him as the lobby's top player. Sewon coldly admits he was always curious about what gear made Sagwang so overpowered, adding that it is quite amusing to see the great champion in such a pathetic, helpless state. Desperate, the martial artist promises to carry Seo-won to an easy victory in exchange for assistance, pleading that keeping him alive is his only ticket to winning. But Seo-won is only interested in his legendary loot and massive life force, knowing they will guarantee his victory. Sagwang desperately argues that most of his power didn't even come from this game. Seo-won calmly introduces himself as he prepares to strike. Knowing it's over, Sagwang accepts his defeat, but fiercely vows that he will hunt down Seo-won in the next life for this betrayal. With a swift, cold plunge, the lobby's strongest player is stabbed straight through the skull. Seo-won feels a brief pang of guilt, killing someone who looks so young. But then, the harvesting begins. Seo-won's body greedily drinks in the massive reserves of life force. He's absolutely astonished by the sheer volume. Sagwang's raw martial essence floods into him, filling his veins with a monstrous, explosive flow of chi. The global kill log suddenly flashes. A system announcement informs the entire map that only 8 survivors remain, and that the legendary Nam Sagwang has been slain by Jin Se-woon. Our clever archer smiles, knowing that with the top predator dead, the weaker players will finally crawl out to play. Overflowing with godlike energy, Siwon truly feels completely invincible. He spots the glowing loot chest dropped by his legendary victim. Having harvested such a ludicrous amount of internal energy, Siwon is certain that this chest contains absolute top-tier gear. Opening it reveals an absolute goldmine. Siwon is ecstatic to find a set of rare rings that heavily boost his agility, strength, stamina, and even grant massive magic resistance. Honestly, you and I can see what a dirty liar that martial artist was, claiming he never relied on gear while secretly hoarding these overpowered rings. Suddenly, a rush of power surges through Siwon. He pulls up his status window and grins as his stats skyrocket, with magic resistance reaching a whopping 90%. Alright, you and I are about to watch our hero become the undisputed champion of this game. Inside the chest were martial arts scrolls he couldn't use yet due to locked requirements. But before he could even think about that, something caught our overpowered marksman's eye. An enemy was creeping closer. Out of nowhere, a massive fireball slammed directly into Jinsoon. Boom! The arrogant mage laughed, mocking him for lowering his guard just to loot a chest. The guy sneered that Siwon must have gotten lucky defeating Nam Sagwang if he fell for a basic sneak attack like that. But the mage froze in pure shock. Siwon was still standing. Thanks to his 90 points of magic resistance, these weak spells could not even scratch him anymore. Slowly, Siwon started walking forward. Panicking at the sight of this approaching monster, the mage began screaming threats of an even stronger spell. He desperately started channeling his mana for one last ultimate blast. But to our main character, this was just sad and completely useless. The explosion erupted, but Siwon just walked right through the flames. No damage. Now it was time for payback. He prepared to use his very first martial art. He unleashed the devastating straight-suffering fist. The punch hit so hard the mage coughed up blood and flew backward, smashing into a nearby tree. Feeling the sheer power of his blow, he realized that martial arts damage scales directly with internal energy. And just like that, with one single punch, the survivor count dropped by 1. As he absorbed the dead man's energy, Son figured his magic resistance of 90 would easily protect him against intermediate spells too. With another top contender wiped out, the rest of the survivors were bound to come out. Our hero knew he was in for one long, brutal night. He dashed back into action. Thanks to his new upgrades, Jin Seo was now moving with the unbelievable speed of the old master who had helped him before. After running for 60 minutes, our hero paused to scout the area. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed, telling him to show himself. Soin could not believe someone was actually screaming like an idiot out in the open. Some loudmouth wielding a giant sword was demanding our main character step out and show some courage. This massive muscle monster was still shouting that everyone was hiding from him when a sudden projectile whistled through the air. Spotting the danger, the giant swordsman raised his massive blade just in time to block the incoming arrow. While the brute was raging over this cowardly surprise attack, Siwon watched with curiosity, wondering about the elite sniper who fired that shot. The swordsman knew only one archer in this game could charge an arrow with that much massive aura. The legendary marksman known as Juroana. The archer stepped forward, amused that the brute knew his name. The muscle monster quickly buttered him up, claiming all mercenaries respected him as the legendary divine archer. The meathead then suggested they team up to win, proposing they start by taking out Jin's wound. Hearing this, the pointy-eared archer landed gracefully on the ground. The mercenary introduced himself as Stano, bragging about his high-tier reputation in his own guild. But the elf barely acknowledged him, responding with just a single, cold word. Stano secretly laughed, thinking this divine archer was actually a complete idiot. Meanwhile, Juro Kuwana stood there, realizing he had slightly miscalculated his timing. Stano declared it was a fatal mistake for a fragile archer to get this close. Instantly betraying their fresh alliance, the brute prepared to strike. Now watch this closely, because as he swung his giant blade to kill the archer, a sudden projectile flew in. Schwack! A second arrow from behind instantly pierced the mercenary's skull. Juro Kuwana scoffed at the idea of ever teaming up with a weakling like Stenko. Having wasted enough time, he turned his focus back to his ultimate target, our protagonist. Speaking of our hero, he was currently rushing to grab the vitality from the dropped chest, with only 6 players left alive. He grew frustrated that the absorption process was taking so long. Just then, the deadly archer spun around, and Siwon froze in absolute terror. As the enemy's gaze locked in his direction, our hero panicked. Did the elf see through his invisibility cloak? He cursed his own carelessness, blaming himself for rushing to absorb that life energy without checking his surroundings first. Luckily, Juroana decided not to waste time on Stano's worthless loot, deeming him too weak to bother with. Deciding the heavy gear would only slow him down, the legendary archer finally walked away. Letting out a massive breath of relief, Siwon collapsed onto the grass. Let's pause for a second that Elf's instincts are terrifying. Jin Seon permanently engraved that name in his mind as the ultimate boss he would eventually have to face. Soon after, the map started shrinking rapidly. Despite 87 days still remaining on the clock, Sia figured the game was accelerating the collapse because so many players were already dead. But then he ran into a major obstacle. Our hero stepped out in front of a massive, wide-open area. Any combat in this tall grass would instantly expose his position to the remaining survivors. Suddenly, swoosh, sharp green blades sliced through the air, forcing our shocked, invisible hero to quickly dodge. Throwing himself backward, Soon barely dodged the lethal strikes. It was terrifying. How could anyone aim so perfectly when his cloak was supposed to make him completely invisible? Instantly, another volley of attacks rained down, heavier than the last. Seon realized running was no longer an option. He had to fight back head-on. Dropping into a solid stance, the invisible warrior put all his faith into his newly upgraded internal energy. It was all or nothing. He unleashed his devastating extreme trade punch. The sheer force of his punch unleashed a shockwave that obliterated the incoming projectiles. Even our hero was stunned by his own insane power. Leaping high into the sky, his eyes scanned the landscape to find the hidden sniper. And there, hiding in the brush, our invisible hero finally spotted his attacker. The enemy mage was frozen in disbelief, unable to comprehend how his ultimate spell was shattered by a single punch. But then, a sudden twist occurred. Squelch! A blade pierced the mage from behind, splattering blood everywhere. The stealthy killer mocked the dying mage for wasting all his mana without keeping some for his shield or detection. The shadowy figure bragged that stealth was his playground, revealing himself as an assassin. With that, another player died, leaving only 5 survivors left. Landing on the ground, Jin Seon was immediately recognized. He was a prime target now, famous for slaying the mighty Nam Sagang. The assassin grinned, warning him that everyone was hunting him down, before boasting that he had never once missed a target. And that's where we leave it as the two charge at each other. The assassin mocks our hero's speed. Who survives? We'll find out soon. Trust me, you and I are about to watch a brutal fight that starts with the assassin drawing first blood, leaving our main character badly injured. Seon realizes this killer is the real deal. Fortunately, his defensive inner energy barely saves him from those deadly slashes. The assassin just laughs, boasting that his victory is guaranteed because he never misses a target when hunting in the pitch black. Our hero is pretty annoyed since it is his first time fighting a stealthy assassin. But when he realizes this guy relies entirely on dark powers, a brilliant plan suddenly pops into his head. Ready to end this, the assassin activates his killer skill. In the blink of an eye, he completely vanishes into thin air. He blitzes forward, unleashing a vicious double slash meant to slice our hero in half. But Jinseo is one step ahead, leaving a mere afterimage for the enemy to strike while he activates his own stealth technique. But the assassin's skills are nothing compared to our main character's stealth. Suddenly appearing behind him, Seon grabs his arms, casually explaining that he tracked him down simply by sensing his inner energy. He tells the cocky killer to keep talking trash right before brutally snapping both of his arms. Terrified, the assassin begs for mercy, promising to help our hero take down the remaining contestants. But before the guy can even finish his sentence, Seon crushes his bones, delivering a swift and fatal finishing blow. Only 4 players remain now that the assassin is dead. Our skilled martial artist quickly absorbs the residual energy of both the assassin and the fallen mage, before rushing over to raid their loot chests. But while looting Tamrin's chest, Siwoon discovers a highly unusual skill book. It allows him to summon multiple clones of himself, with the number based entirely on his current inner energy. If that assassin actually knew how to control inner energy, this book would have made him an absolute nightmare to fight. The other chest contains Carmen's Eye, which can track down even the stealthiest targets, though his level is too low to learn it. Now pay attention here, right, as he realizes his own invisibility is not invincible. A projectile comes flying from above. Seon instinctively tilts his head, narrowly avoiding a lethal arrow that would have pierced his skull. Staring at the arrow, he instantly figures out who shot it. But before he can react, a massive, giant object comes hurtling through the air straight toward him. Siwoon has never seen a spell like this, meaning someone other than the archer cast it. Since there is no way to dodge, our hero has to brace himself and meet it head-on. Boom! He meets the massive boulder with a straight, heavy punch. Pouring a massive amount of mana into his fist, he completely shatters the giant rock into pieces. He quickly realizes that 2 players are teaming up against him. Right then, a voice echoes through the area, praising our protagonist for his impressive raw strength. Siwoon barely dodges a sudden burst of freezing frost by a hair, quickly backing away to create some distance. It turns out he is facing a 3 versus 1 situation, as they have all grouped up to eliminate him. Facing Senchurk, King of Kursanen, Carrion, the Demon King's right hand, and Kwana, the Divine Archer, our main character, who does not even have a fancy title, finds himself in serious trouble. The trio boasts that his run ends right here. Facing a united front, his best strategy would be to turn them against each other. But since they are complete strangers to him, sowing discord is impossible. Just then, the Dark Mage steps up to greet the King of Kursanen. But Senchurk looks completely disgusted that a black magician would dare speak to him. The mage apologizes, reminding him that status means nothing in this arena. As the magician proposes a temporary alliance, our hero realizes these 3 opponents just happen to arrive at the exact same time. With their uneasy truce form, they focus on exposing our hero from his stealth. Suddenly, the Dark Mage unleashes a powerful spell. A blinding light erupts, nearly binding our protagonist in place. The Demon King's right hand has illuminated the entire area, leaving absolutely no shadows for the young man to hide in. This is extremely dangerous, because his stealth cloak can only conceal him by blending his body into the surrounding shadows. The mage mocks him, saying he wanted to thank Nam Sagwang for defeating his rival, the Great Mage. Though disappointed he cannot thank Sagwang in person, the Dark Mage is eager to slaughter our hero in his lord's name. With a sinister laugh, he unleashes his Chaos Blade, Dark Blade Storm. Okay, I know what you were thinking. Charging a mage head-on is absolute suicide, right? Well, our hero charges anyway, bypassing the massive swirling blades. Carrion just laughs at his foolishness, unleashing his full magical wrath. Siwon forces his inner energy outward, forming a shield to absorb the damage so he can close the gap. But the blades are too relentless, leaving him covered in deep, painful cuts. His stealth cloak is ruined and needs repairs to work again. This brutal spell has put him in a terrible corner, breaking both his cloak and his defensive energy shield. The Dark Mage is stunned that the kid has not been sliced into tiny pieces yet. But emerging from the storm of slashes, our hero suddenly activates his Severing Fist technique. Stepping forward, a blood-soaked Jin Seowon charges directly at his target, unleashing a powerful straight-cut fist attack. But the mage sneers, calling his struggle useless before casting Touch of the Dead. Instantly, countless decaying hands of corpses erupt from the earth, reaching high into the air to drag him down. He has never faced an opponent this skilled before. Thinking fast, he triggers his Spirit Illusion steps. Just like that, our hero breaks free from the deadly grasp. The Demon King's right hand is stunned to see a mere martial artist pulling off illusions. Seizing the opening, Siwon closes the distance, preparing to strike a devastating finishing blow. Suddenly, the third player joins the fray. A rapier thrusts straight through the Dark Mage, piercing our hero too. Shocked by the betrayal, the dying mage curses the king for cowardly stabbing him in the back. Censor coldly replies that the end justifies the means, admitting he never viewed the Dark Magician as an ally anyway. Still, he thanks the corpse for taking down our annoying main character with his final breath. Now, only the king and the Divine Archer remain standing face to face. Censor finds it amusing to face Kwana, a constant thorn in his army's side, in a duel. But the legendary archer warns the king that this match is far from a one-on-one. And before that mustached king can even process what is happening, our protagonist delivers a devastating punch directly to his skull. The strike is so powerful it shatters his heavy armor, sending him spinning through the air. The king is blasted straight into a nearby mountain as Siyun struggles to catch his breath. Facing our hero, Kwana deduces that he must have used a clever illusion to dodge the king's initial stab. With that settled, Siwon tells him to cut the talk and get ready for their final showdown. Kwana laughs at how impatient everyone is, but points out there's still unfinished business. Emerging from the rubble, the battered king grumbles about how annoying it is to get blindsided by a cheap shot. The king praises the kid for dodging his blade and shattering his pristine armor. Then, our hero dramatically rips off his shirt, asking if they want to fight him one by one or all together. Senchurk stops holding back, blitzing forward. Our hero is absolutely shocked by his insane speed, and honestly, you and I are going to want to see how he survives this. You and I are diving into a split-second clash where a rapier pierces our hero's arm. Senchurk boasts he is the fastest around, claiming he paralyzed Siwon's left hand to lock his techniques. Panic sets in for Siwon. This opponent looks like a hulking brute, but he is actually a high-speed cardio monster whose movements cannot even be tracked with inner energy. But our hero refuses to lose when he is this close to the peak. Channeling his gathered internal energy, he shatters the enemy's rapier, leaving the shocked king staring at his broken weapon. Thinking fast, Siwon yanks the broken metal shard right out of his arm. He fires it like a bullet using his throwing skill, but the king barely dodges a fatal blow. The Mustache King is furious that his face got nicked in the exchange, while Siwon quickly clutches a healing scroll to recover. Recognizing his opponent's deadly resolve, the king decides to stop holding back. He unleashes a glowing aura blade directly from his broken hilt to form a brand new weapon. Senchurk is actually impressed, realizing this young martial artist forced him to use his ultimate aura blade. Meanwhile, Jin Siwon's injured arm has completely finished healing. In response, our hero unleashes his spirit illusion steps, pouring every drop of his power into summoning multiple clones. The swordsman finds these classic martial desperate urge to win. Meanwhile, the third survivor watching from the sidelines complains and tells them to hurry up. The divine archer is growing bored, waiting for a survivor to step up and challenge him. Our hero decides to hold absolutely nothing back against the king, who mockingly tells him to stop running his mouth and start running his hands. Now, pay attention here, Senchurk has a strict 2-minute limit on his aura blade to end this. Siwon can feel the suffocating pressure of his impending doom. With his internal energy running dangerously close to empty, our hero and his army of shadow clones charge head-on against the massive speedster king. The king lunges to pierce one clone, only for another to strike him from behind. The blonde swordsman immediately spins and slashes the attacker, but to his utter horror, his blade feels completely weightless, meeting nothing but empty air. Realizing it was just a fake, Senchurk vows to butcher every single illusion and their creator. But before he can even blink, a heavy fist smashes right into his face. Another martial artist lands a clean, heavy blow. Feeling the solid impact, the king assumes this must be the real Siwon, but our hero just smirks and asks how the punch tasted. He taunts the king to stop searching for the real body. He reveals that every single clone possesses his exact same destructive firepower, making them virtually identical to the original. In that exact moment, 2 clones rain down upon the swordsman with a double flying kick that he barely dodges. The mustachioed king immediately channels his piercing aura, slashing both illusions with a single counterattack. Just like that, the illusions vanish. Senchurk sneers that these clones are weak, one-tap fakes, leaving only 5 Siwons remaining on the battlefield. Don't blink, because the clock is ticking, as the king has only 60 seconds before his weapon crumbles. Up above, the archer watches with great amusement, genuinely surprised to see him struggle so much. Desperate, the king begs the archer for backup, promising a massive reward once they survive this realm. But the archer cannot even shout a warning before our hero suddenly teleports right in front of his face. The king thrusts wildly, but our martial artist easily weaves past the blade. Siwon retaliates instantly, launching a devastating, severing fist strike. The strike is incredibly powerful, but the swordsman barely blocks it using his rapier's hilt guard at the very last second. Annoyed by this defense, our hero watches as Senchurk lunges to stab him, convinced he has found the real body. With a brutal squelch, blood splatters as the blade pierces right through the clone's chest. But as the fake dissolves, the king is left utterly horrified that he fell for another illusion. The absolute embarrassment makes his blood boil. Senchurk simply cannot tolerate being made a fool of like this. Losing all composure, the furious swordsman screams that he no longer cares about the game, wanting nothing but to rip Jin Siwon apart. Seeing this insane rage, the elf compares him to the Emperor of Madness, while the king dares our hero to dodge his next strike. He unleashes a massive, sweeping thrust that instantly obliterates 2 more clones, successfully reducing the number of opponents on the field once again. With only 2 targets left, the king has a 50-50 shot at hitting the real deal. Right on cue, both remaining figures charge straight at the swordsman. The agile swordsman dodges the first heavy punch but gets completely nailed in the gut by the second. Feeling the bone-shattering impact, Senchurk realizes this is the real one and drives his sword straight into his opponent's head. But as the blade passes effortlessly through the skull, he realizes it is yet another fake. With only 1 lone figure left standing, the king triumphantly declares that this final one must be the real Siwon. It is finally a true one-on-one. Senchurk vows to end this duel with his very next strike, but our silent hero does not even bother to reply as both warriors charge at each other. Siwon acts fast, intercepting the king's sword arm with a high kick. Senchurk is genuinely impressed, praising the young warrior's exceptional hand-to-hand combat skills. Unwilling to risk it, the king unleashes his ultimate finishing move, Aura Blade Lightning Storm. A blinding, destructive burst of light explodes directly from the broken hilt. The surging energy is so intense it completely obliterates our hero's leg. Siwon screams in agonizing pain while his opponent grins with cruel satisfaction as the young warrior collapses, writhing on the dirt. Siwon desperately begs for his life, offering to help the king defeat the archer, but is answered with a ruthless stab straight to his gut. The battle ends, and the glowing aura blade finally fades away. The king successfully finishes the job right before his 2-minute limit runs out. Censure quietly admits that if this duel had dragged on any longer, he would have been the one dead. But a sudden chill runs down his spine. The king freezes in sheer horror as he realizes the devastating truth: there was absolutely zero impact when his sword pierced the body. Suddenly, a hand clamps tightly onto the mustachioed king's head. Without a moment of hesitation, the real Si-Woon crushes his skull, admitting he would have lost if his clones had not completely exhausted his foe first. Watching from above, the divine archer admits he is genuinely surprised by the human's victory. Jurikana even thanks our hero for taking out that annoying king. He notes how the mighty Centric put his entire soul into the duel, only to be completely outsmarted by a young martial artist using every trick in his book. But now, that very same martial artist is the one he plans to put down. Without wasting a single second, the divine archer unleashes a deadly strike to claim his prize, leaving the exhausted young man absolutely horrified by the overwhelming speed. Si-Woon absorbs a massive wave of internal energy from his latest kill. While it is not as immense as the power he took from Nam Sagwang, it is more than enough to fully replenish him. Now armed with the energy needed to confront the archer, he suddenly senses a lethal threat. Si-Woon barely dodges a silent arrow flying his way and immediately unleashes his clone technique once again. An army of martial artists charges fiercely at the divine archer. The elf finds this duplication trick annoying, but a confident smirk spreads across his face anyway. With pinpoint accuracy, the archer releases a single arrow that pierces the real Si-Woon straight through his leg. Shocked, the real body collapses to the ground as his illusionary army instantly vanishes into thin air. The archer steps down, explaining he needs to completely immobilize our hero. Just like that, he pins his hands with arrows, and trust me, we are definitely survives this. All right, you and I are jumping right into the action, where our annoyed hero demands to know how this elf picked him out from his clones. The divine archer just smiles, saying he relies on raw instinct. Our hero is totally lost, but the martial artist points out how hard he must have struggled to survive this long. Jurowana actually shows his respect, but the main character could not care less and just wants him to end the fight. And just like that, the battle is over. Jin Seo-woon has been defeated, taken out by a direct arrow shot to the head. While the marksman wonders if it is really over, the final chest finally shows up. The battle in this game called Claude has officially ended, leaving our defeated protagonist blaming himself for being way too careless. Even though he burned through a massive amount of mana, the second-place finisher is not happy. But to his absolute shock, the system alerts him that he has qualified for the second game. As his hard-earned match loop pops up, our hero is rewarded with 140 coins. Every single item he picked up during the game has a completely different price tag. The system tells him he can purchase whatever he wants with his earnings, but he is completely shocked to find out that his own cloning technique costs a whopping 130 coins, which is a total ripoff. Then, the system reveals that since he made it as one of the 5 finalists, he gets to spin a lucky wheel for free items. Since he placed second, Jin So-woon gets 2 free spins. He desperately prays to land either the super expensive invisibility cloak or his cloning skill, knowing a lucky win here would give him a massive advantage. With that, he kicks off his very first spin. His eyes are glued to the roulette wheel, waiting for the perfect split second to hit stop. Si-Woon holds his breath, waiting for the wheel to settle. But his prize turns out to be the escrow necklace, leaving him incredibly frustrated since this free spin basically handed him the cheapest item in the store. Now, watch closely, because he still has one more shot. He starts begging every god in existence for some real luck, locking his eyes on the screen before finally screaming for the wheel to stop. His heart pounds like crazy as he waits for the final result. And yes, he actually lands the legendary spirit illusion steps. Our hero is absolutely thrilled. He actually managed to snag the most expensive item in the entire shop for absolutely 0 coins. With the draw complete, the system transfers over all of his won items. Now it is time to do some real shopping. Scoring that ultra-expensive skill for free saved him a massive amount of cash, so he quickly grabs his essentials and wraps up his business in this lobby. With everything locked in, the system wishes him luck for the upcoming second game, and the teleportation light begins to wrap around him. Our hero opens his eyes in a familiar place. He is standing in the exact spot where he first vanished. That is when he feels a sudden weight resting in the palm of his hand. It is the ring of subspace he won during the match. There is no denying it now that crazy, death-defying game was completely real. Bracing himself, our main character grabs his backpack and heads out. With the first round over, everything looks like it is back to normal on the surface. But in reality, this is just the opening chapter of a massive new era in his life. Jin Si-Woon does not have to worry about Tali anymore. The system was crystal clear: another dangerous match is coming soon. Even though finishing second is a solid start, he heads straight home to prepare because he wants more. This time, our hero is aiming for that #1 spot. He returns to the small apartment near his university that his parents got him. He was supposed to be studying for college, but his entire focus has shifted. Now, he is training for survival in the second game. Seo-woon refuses to enter the next match as a weak survivor. He wants to be a dominant hunter. But right now, he feels completely hollow because his internal energy was totally drained in the previous battle. Since taking lives is still highly illegal in Korea, he has no choice but to rely on gathering energy just to restore a fraction of his drained reserves. His master once explained that while absorbing energy from others is faster, he can still gather and restore it through practice. Hearing this, the young pupil asked the old master if he could truly reach his godlike level through pure training. The master just laughed at his student's insane confidence, warning him that trying to follow in his footsteps would likely get him killed. But only time will tell if Jin Se-woon is just a weak normal human or a sleeping powerhouse. After 4 long hours of non-stop meditation, our protagonist barely manages to gather a tiny spark of energy. Honestly, I know what you are thinking. This training is taking forever. Real life just lacks the game's rich energy, so Se-woon decides to stop wasting time and inspect the epic loot he brought back. He really wishes he could have grabbed a stronger martial art than this cheap 30-coin Iron Fist book. Our hero worries that practicing this manually in the real world will take forever, making his path to power painfully long. But then, a massive surprise hits him. The system from the game actually works here on Earth. He quickly uses the system to instantly learn the skill, throwing a test punch and a fast kick. They are not nearly as destructive as they were in the game, though, since his energy reserves are completely dry. Next, he checks out the rest of his haul, starting with that cheap necklace he won from the bonus roulette wheel. After a quick test, he confirms the description was telling the truth. The necklace is solid gold. He is stunned to realize this single coin item is worth 10 million won on Earth. Just 10 of these necklaces would set him up with a small fortune. It turns out even the cheapest junk from the game can be sold for massive money in the real world. Take this medical elixir, for example, which guarantees a whole year free of disease. Se-woon realizes he could sell this for a fortune to desperate, wealthy people who have run out of options. This game is his golden ticket to a brand new life. But suddenly, his stomach growls, reminding him that he spent the entire match eating dry jerky while his hunger was masked by energy consumption. So, he heads out to grab some real food. Minutes later, he is sitting at a local restaurant, ordering a simple set meal. This 5,001 meal was a luxury he desperately missed during those brutal battles. Tears actually stream down his face as he tastes fresh, warm white rice for the first time in ages. The restaurant owner tells him to stop crying like a baby and eat. Our hero claims he is just overwhelmed by the incredible flavor, while the kind lady tells him to clean his plate and ask for seconds. Time works differently in the game compared to Earth, just like he suspected. After he finishes eating, the old lady takes his money and tells him to come back soon. He needs to gather as much energy as possible before the next round starts, whenever that is. Suddenly, he remembers a very special item sitting in his inventory. He slips on the cheap 2-coin ring of strength, wondering if it will actually boost his real-world body. Instantly, an incredible rush of power surges through his veins. He crouches down and launches himself high into the sky. It feels like his entire body is made of raw force, and despite the insane height, he sticks the landing like a pro. Trust me, you and I both know how fast a video like that would go viral. But with proof that his game's stats transfer perfectly to Earth, he starts planning his next move. Back home, he hesitates over an item he wanted to save until he had more energy. After some deep thought, he decides to consume it right now, his most expensive haul, the 50-coin elixir of inner sight. Alright, you and I are diving into a crazy story where an elixir paralyzes our hero for 3 hours, making his cells boil, and yet, he chugs it down without a second thought. The effects kick in instantly. Insane power floods his body, and the empty bottle drops to the floor. Fast forward 3 hours, and a neighbor reports that the apartment wall is burning hot. Since the neighbor complains that even the doorknob is boiling, dispatch tells her to call 911 instead. The old lady tells the arriving officers it doesn't feel like a fire, but they assume it is just a broken boiler. The neighbor isn't buying their excuses. She is absolutely sure something sketchy is causing this extreme heat. The officer reaches out to grab the doorknob so they can enter, but to his absolute shock, his hand is severely burned. Nursing his injury, the police demand that the resident inside open the door, claiming they are only there to help. Finally, the door opens. After taking in the shocking sight of the steaming apartment, the officer explains they received a fire complaint. C1, looking completely drained, just claims he has a bad fever. He lies, saying he just cranked up his boiler and asks why the police showed up instead of the fire department if they actually suspected a fire. The officers explain they are just doing their job and offer to call an ambulance for our protagonist. But Siwon declines, insisting he will recover on his own. With that, the officers head out, telling the neighbor not to waste their time with trivial complaints. Once he is finally alone, our protagonist quickly shuts the door behind them. Siwon, who suffered absolute agony from the elixir, almost died if not for his supreme blanket technique. This brutal experience makes him realize that items brought from the game are extremely dangerous in the real world. Even so, he feels a new power coursing through him and decides to test his strength. With a single, light palm strike, the exhausted young man shatters a heavy chair across the room. Staring at the wreckage, Siwon decides his first priority with his new game items is to sell them and buy himself a new chair. Now, pay attention here because this next day changes everything. Our hero heads to an outdoor park gym to train his martial arts, but finds the place far too crowded for his liking. While debating if he should switch to night training, he suddenly spots something very intriguing. Siwon spots a group of high school thugs at the foot of the mountain. One of them is a girl, nervously asking if their boss really wants to see her. But mid-conversation, an old man calls them out, reminding them that smoking is strictly forbidden here. One of the punks snaps back, telling the elder to mind his own business, since even his own parents do not care. The old man quickly backs down, mumbling that it was his mistake, which only makes the arrogant young thug even angrier. Watching this, Siwon suddenly feels uneasy. The punk raises a hand to strike the old man for complaining, but suddenly gets kicked right in the face. With that single, brutal blow, the high schooler goes flying and crashes hard into a nearby trash can. Our hero, who just laid out a minor, coldly tells him, "All right, you and I are jumping right into a mess." Out of nowhere, this giant high schooler over 6 feet tall steps up to our hero and asks if he has a death wish. Jin Siwon instantly realizes he is in deep trouble. The massive thug demands an explanation, wanting to know if our main character was the one who actually beat up his younger brother. Siwon points out that the kid had it coming for attacking an elder, especially since these high schoolers shouldn't be smoking out in public anyway. But the moment Siwon tells the giant to raise his brother better, his instincts kick in. He ducks a sudden, massive punch and decides it is time to throw one of his own powerful strikes. And boom, the giant high schooler takes a devastating hit. Our hero immediately panics, realizing he might have used way too much strength on this kid. But pay attention here because things get wild. The thug suddenly pulls out a sharp switchblade. Watching this guy wave his weapon around, our hero realizes both of these idiot brothers are exactly the same level of stupid. Siwon easily dodges the C-2000 knife. This quick skirmish makes it crystal clear to our main character that he is now on a completely different level than regular normies. He executes a swift sweep kick to knock the thug off balance. Siwon tries to hold back, using only 50% of his power, but 50% of the 10,000 palm technique is still a nightmare. The thug flies backward and slams directly into a tree, likely breaking a few bones. Siwon freezes in panic when he notices the crowd starting to record the whole thing on their phones. Knowing he messed up by going way too hard, he quickly tries to cover it up, loudly claiming his opponent is just a really talented actor and stuntman. Now I know what you were thinking. Is he going to stick around? No way. He tells the kid to stop smoking and drop the switchblades, then immediately books it after nearly ending 2 high schoolers. He instantly regrets using his system powers on ordinary humans. If he accidentally kills a civilian, his entire life is basically over. Sure, the game system let him learn these crazy skills instantly, but he still needs actual time to master them. So our hero keeps on running. Cut to 30 days after that wild encounter with the high schoolers. Siwon is meditating daily to control his strength, when a sudden ringtone breaks his focus. It is his mother calling to check in on him. She admits she has been deeply worried since they haven't talked in a while and asks how he is settling into his new university classes. Siwon lies, saying everything is perfect because he cannot bear to tell her he dropped out of college to pursue martial arts. But when he asks about his dad, he receives the shocking news that his father was involved in a terrible car crash. Our hero is completely horrified. His father was out making a delivery when another car ran a red light and plowed directly into him. His mother starts crying, explaining that insurance won't cover the incredibly expensive surgery. She feels completely ashamed, asking her son for the tuition money she had saved and sent him earlier. Siwon immediately asks for the total cost while checking his system subspace inventory. The surgery is going to cost 2 million won. He reassures her that he has a way to get the money, while his mother tearfully apologizes for bothering him. Siwon quickly hangs up and heads out. His parents had spent their entire lives struggling, constantly moving from one cheap rental to another. His father worked endlessly, jumping from one tough job to another, only to get smaller and smaller paychecks. And trust me, that is where we see him break down, knowing he was a burden. But this is the exact moment his payback arc finally begins. Let's dive into a classic fantasy hustle. Our hero enters the shop, offering up his rare escrow necklace. The sneaky shopkeeper immediately recognizes its exotic origins, shamelessly lying that it is actually a long-lost family heirloom. An assistant points out just how ancient the piece is as Seo-woon presses for a price. When she explains it is worth far more than ordinary gold, Seo-woon reveals his painful truth: he must sell it right now to pay for his father's life-saving surgery. Now, here is where it gets tough. With no other options, our young martial artist finalizes the deal and walks out of the shop. Thanks to skyrocketing gold prices, Seo-woon now has more than enough to fund his dad's surgery and secure a comfortable life for them both. But seeing the shopkeeper's greedy grin, he realizes he got ripped off. Still, desperation left him no choice, leaving you and me wondering how he will safely trade his treasures next time. Alright, you and I are diving back in, as our main character's first priority is sending cash to his mother. When she gets the call, she is absolutely baffled by the massive amount. She actually worries he took out some shady loan. But Seo-woon laughs it off, pointing out that no one lends to a jobless guy, claiming it is just savings from his part-time gigs. He wraps up the call, telling her he cannot visit the hospital just yet. Back in his room, Seo-woon sits alone with his thoughts until a random conversation he overhears suddenly sparks a brilliant idea. A couple of high school kids are hating on a leaked video, calling it fake computer graphics. But in that footage, someone is clearly chanting real magic spells. Hearing those words sends chills down his spine. Any regular person would brush it off, but as an active player, he recognizes those exact in-game spells instantly. It hits him hard. He is not the only player from Korea in this deadly game. Oddly enough, the kids mention the video keeps getting uploaded and immediately deleted in a non-stop loop. Seo-woon never really considered how other players on Earth might complicate his life. Meanwhile, in a dark office, a tense phone call is happening as a man promises to scrub the internet clean. The trembling leader apologizes repeatedly, swearing to fix the leak before the call abruptly cuts off. He demands a full report on this mysterious Korean player. But when his subordinate admits they cannot control how many players get chosen, the boss completely loses his temper. He hurls a heavy object straight at his assistant's head, furious that random nobodies are gaining powers outside of their elite organization. The angry boss barks orders to hunt down any attention-seeking players on the web. He then casually tells them to stop the man's bleeding before it completely ruins his expensive carpet. So, while one of them uses his special abilities to heal his wounded comrade, the cruel boss mocks their pathetic weakness and complains about his annoying rival. He then commands his entire squad to move out right away. The scorching summer heat fades, giving way to chilly autumn nights. 2 whole months have passed since his return to Earth, and our main character has not skipped a single midnight training session. He has built up a solid amount of inner energy, slowly mastering its flow. But as Seo-woon leaps into the air, his mind drifts to his most pressing problem. He activates his signature, totally not copied technique. Yes, we are talking about his own version of the Shadow Clone Jutsu, quickly following up with a devastating Unbroken Fist strike. Because his energy reserves are still low on Earth, he can only summon one single clone. To make matters worse, this copy vanishes almost instantly. The 2 martial artists charge through the forest in perfect sync. As they leap into position, their fists collide with force and the clone immediately poofs out of existence. He feels like he has hit a wall. During his brutal clash with the giant swordsman, he easily summoned 8 powerful clones without breaking a sweat. He suspects his body has some deep damage from burning through so much energy back then. Feeling hungry, he reaches into his pocket dimension for a quick snack, but a sudden blinding light engulfs him. And just like that, our player is transported right back to the lobby. Just like before, panic fills the air, spoken in a dozen different foreign tongues. Looking at the terrified crowd, he reminisces about his very first round. He realizes that these deadly matches must run on a strict 2-month schedule. Suddenly, the system voice chimes in, announcing a brand new tutorial round. This is highly unusual, as there was absolutely no tutorial in his previous match. A smirk plays on his face as he notices this lobby is packed with clueless beginners. But then, his eyes lock onto a figure standing atop a statue dressed like a high schooler. He is genuinely surprised to meet another Korean player here for the first time. The kid spots him immediately, but Seo-woon is already tired of these young kids trying to flex their edgy aura at every opportunity. He senses the kid is no beginner, though he highly doubts he has more raw potential than Nam Sagwan. With all 200 players gathered, the game is officially ready to begin. To qualify, players just need to stay alive, but only the top 20 will walk away with the real premium rewards. This setup makes our main character realize it is a relatively safe match with a lower risk of elimination. This absolutely thrills him, as he can now unleash his inner predator on everyone. But pay attention here, because the system suddenly drops a massive twist. For this round, players are given a brand new option to pair up and run as duos. The system explains that everyone is free to pick a partner, and they will both secure a victory as long as at least one of them survives until the very end. Anyone left without a partner has to go solo. Sehwoon finally connects the dots on why this lobby has 200 players instead of the usual 100. It is honestly fascinating how fast these strangers are teaming up, even though picking a weak partner is basically dead weight. Sehwoon quickly thinks about recruiting that mysterious high school kid. Since he is clearly an experienced veteran player, he would make an incredibly useful ally in the chaotic battles ahead. But when he looks back, the statue is completely empty. The edgy high schooler he wanted to team up with has vanished without a single trace. Getting a bit desperate, he tries to secure a teammate fast. But the first person he approaches is already paired up, and his second attempt yields the exact same result. Literally everyone has already coupled up. He knows there must be other solo players left, but trying to find them in this massive chaotic crowd is practically impossible. You and I both know our main character does not play around. With his hand forced, he decides to drop in alone and just wipe out the entire lobby. Let the games begin. Sehwoon spots a small cluster of village houses that look like they hold some high-tier loot. Without wasting another second, he aims directly for that zone. Slamming down like a blazing shooting star, he realizes his best bet is to land first and quickly slaughter anyone who arrives late. With a heavy thud, his feet finally impact the solid earth. Going full speedrun mode, he spins around and spots 6 other players descending from above. That means he is about to fight 3 full duos at once, but he charges in anyway. He has analyzed his first match countless times while training tirelessly back in his room. Now, Sehwoon is finally ready to execute the ultimate survival strategy he developed for this very day. Nearby, a young mage is still recovering from his dizzying landing. But just as he starts wondering where his partner ended up, an enemy violently shatters his magic barrier. The panicked mage screams for answers, but Sehwoon already considers him a corpse. Without a word, he channels his internal energy and unleashes his unbroken fist strike. The impact is so devastating it pierces straight through the helpless mage, making him cough up blood. That is when the system warns him about a new mechanic he needs to finish off down enemies quickly before their partners can rush over to revive them. But just as he prepares to crush the wizard's skull, he senses a sudden threat from behind. An armored giant of a knight suddenly charges from behind with a deadly lance. Sehwoon barely dodges the weapon but still gets slammed by the massive shield. The mage's partner has arrived to ruin his day. Regaining his footing, Sehwoon is impressed by the knight's sheer power. But trust me, you and I are about to watch this veteran fighter realize his partner is already dead. See you next time. Alright, you and I are about to watch a martial artist who knows exactly how to disarm weapon-wielding fools. But since Earth had 0 weapon users, he could only practice this in his head. Now that Sehwoon finally gets to use it in this game, he is absolutely thrilled, letting out a wild grin as he prepares to show off. Right then, the knight charges straight at him. Our hero reacts instantly, prepping a counter. But just as his fist is about to clash with the deadly lance, our martial artist suddenly opens his hand wide. He slickly dodges the spear, letting it slide right past him. Now completely out of danger, he strikes back. Before the knight even realizes what is happening, a brutal punch lands right in his gut. The warrior is furious that his thrust got deflected so easily, but our main character is far from finished, immediately spotting a massive opening in his enemy's defense. Focusing all his inner strength into his palm, he unleashes a devastating strike that blasts right through the armored knight. The guy takes massive damage, but his nightmare is only just beginning. Sehwoon grabs him by the helmet, smashing his knee upward with so much force that the metal completely shatters. Yeah, it is safe to say his skull is absolutely broken after that. Just like that, the knight collapses, completely done. Soon easily finishes off his second opponent. He stomps his foot right onto the fallen warrior's head, crushing it to secure an epic double kill. Sehwoon is thrilled by the massive amount of vital energy he gets to absorb. Getting it directly like this is way faster than harvesting. Now, only 2 enemy teams are left standing. But right as our hero finishes absorbing the energy, a sudden threat flies straight at him. He dodges a stray arrow at the absolute last second. Shocked by this sniper, he immediately scans the area. But before he can even spot the shooter, another arrow comes whistling through the air. He is caught off guard, barely dodging the worst of it, but he still gets hit. The sharp projectile grazes his face, drawing blood. C barely has time to wonder if the archer is finished before a whole storm of arrows rains down, forcing him to bolt into the woods. Sprinting through the trees, Seo-woon wonders how this sniper is so incredibly accurate. Yet, judging by the lack of heavy impact behind the shots, the guy definitely has no internal energy. Is this archer a solo player, or is there a teammate nearby? Heading back toward the village, our hero figures that hunting down and eliminating this annoying sniper will force his partner to show up. In his very first game, a situation like this would have had him shaking in fear. But now, he just looks at these enemies as tasty energy meals. That is when something terrifying happens. A volley of arrows flies out from a nearby building, and one strikes him dead in the face. For a second, it looks like our protagonist is getting eliminated on day one. But plot twist, it is just a dummy clone. The target suddenly vanishing leaves the hidden archer completely baffled. As he tries to figure out where the hell his prey went, a brutal kick slams right into his face. Siwon finally tracks down this annoying sniper, sending him crashing through a door with a single powerful kick. But Siwon is left confused. He is positive his kick landed, yet the target has vanished into thin air. Then a fast-moving shadow glides past him, sparking a realization. He is dealing with an invisible enemy wearing a stealth cloak. Suddenly, a dark shadow creeps up right behind him, catching him off guard. An arrow is fired from point-blank range, but our hero reacts with insane reflexes and dodges just in time. Thanks to that broken cloak, Siwon cannot sense the archer's presence as the guy slips behind him. Our hero quickly realizes he is stuck in a seriously tricky spot. Knowing he cannot win a close-quarters brawl against a martial arts master, the archer tries to run. But little does he know, Seo-woon is not letting him escape that easily. He chases his target right through the village streets. The poor archer is running in absolute panic, only for his worst nightmare to suddenly step out right in front of him. Siwon points out that wearing a stealth cloak in broad daylight is a rookie mistake. Since this broken item is perfect for climbing the ranks, Siwon decides he is taking it from his cold, dead hands. Just then, a third player arrives. The archer's partner apologizes for lagging behind our lightning-fast martial artist, but the terrified sniper who is about to get slaughtered does not care about apologies. The dual-wielding elf points out that their target is wide open. Realizing this, the desperate archer screams at his partner to finish him off immediately. Now pay attention to this part, because even facing a 2 versus 1, our guy just grins. He knows he is not outnumbered, they are just trapped in here with him. The elven swordsman charges forward. Seo-woon casually tilts his head to dodge, but the sniper is already letting another arrow fly right at him. Our martial artist slips away, leaving the elven swordsman directly in the line of fire. The quick swordsman barely deflects his partner's arrow, while Siwon uses the chaos to bolt down a narrow alleyway between the houses. Tired of dealing with this slippery target, the archer fires 3 arrows at once. Just like that, our hero gets struck right in the back. The sniper is absolutely thrilled with his legendary Buzz performance, but little do these two teammates know, they are still in deep trouble as our martial artist suddenly charges the guy who thought he had already won. Siwon simply pities the man's foolish arrogance. Before the duo can even react, our hero strikes with lethal precision, impaling the archer from behind. With the sniper down, he warns the elf to stop trusting his eyes so much. The stunned swordsman cannot believe his skill, wondering if he is fighting an illusion. I know what you were thinking, this elf is totally outmatched. But he charges anyway, screaming that he will be the last one standing, while Siwon calmly tells him he needs to fight harder to save his buddy. Our hero is slightly surprised by his determination. The two warriors rush at each other, and since the elf is unleashing a named skill, our protagonist prepares his own ultimate move. To pull off this counter, he has to find a gap in the defense to strike his enemy's shoulder. But out of nowhere, his own hand gets slashed open. To his shock, this elf is way faster than he anticipated. Capitalizing on his speed, the swordsman chains his attacks, landing a devastating bloody rush combo on our hero. Siwon realizes this strike is on a whole different level. Honestly, if it were not for his protective internal energy shield, he would be dead right now. The elf smugly mocks him, noting that our hero's energy core is surprisingly shallow. He then claims he does not care how the martial artist survived or even copied him, because his sword is slicing his neck open next. Seo-woon knows a perfect counter is his only shot at survival. Still, he struggles to find a rhythm against his enemy's blindingly fast movements. But then he remembers he has a safety net in this match. Grinning, he decides to bet it all on one incredibly risky gamble. Siwon decides to try tracking his opponent's presence without even using his eyes. He is absolutely sure that if he masters this right now, reaching the number 1 spot will be a breeze. He has spent 2 straight months mastering his internal energy. He is no longer that weak rookie from his first match, but a rising powerhouse with unlimited potential. Suddenly, everything clicks and his mind opens. The swords drop. The elven swordsman is completely frozen and baffled, seeing that his ultimate technique was just effortlessly blocked with bare hands. In that instant, he awakens his true potential. And trust me, you and I just watched him secure his fourth kill by crushing the elf's neck before he could even beg. Alright, let us jump into this wild battle where our powerful swordsman just drops some sweet loot, including a healing scroll. After popping that heal, our hero starts searching for more loot, his one major regret. He accidentally damaged that sweet cloak of invisibility. The broken cloak is useless now unless he finds a special scroll or a master craftsman. Still, Siwon pockets it anyway to check out the other loot. Next is the Orb of Alex, the archer, which infuses arrows with lightning magic. Strange, since he did not feel any shocks during their fight, but seeing a skill book that unlocks multi-shot arrows, our main character realizes his opponent was just playing a basic archer build the entire time. Without wasting a second, he learns the skill book. Siwon is ready to put his brand new powers to the test. He lets an arrow fly straight into a nearby wall. This legendary bow of Alex is a massive upgrade compared to his old starter crossbow. Siwon decides to ignore the final team for a bit so he can catch his breath and loot. While searching the houses, he worries he will only find low-tier gear and starts praying for a miracle drop. Just then, our martial artist spots something strange outside. An incredibly tall, towering structure standing right in the center of the village. High towers usually mean top-tier loot, so he sprints over immediately. It looks like he is the very first one here, which means the entire place is his to raid. Solon shuts the door behind him to stay cautious. After searching almost the entire tower, our protagonist prays for just one good drop, but in the end, there is absolutely nothing for him here. Frustrated, he punches the wall. Seriously, his luck in this game is either incredibly blessed or totally cursed. But suddenly, something catches his eye through the window. He spots the final team currently looting the village. Since they are totally distracted, he wonders if he can take them solo and steal whatever high-tier weapons they found. So our martial artist plans his next move to wipe them out. Now pay attention, because he just spotted something absolutely crazy. The two players head straight for the tower entrance. Seeing the door closed, they happily assume they are the very first lucky ones to explore this place. They celebrate finding a simple healing scroll, completely unaware that a deadly hunter is lurking right above their heads. Our main character, who skipped those scrolls because his inventory was already full of them, had accidentally created the perfect bait. Realizing these guys are total beginners, he leaps down from above. He is absolutely determined to start this fight by scoring first blood. The clueless rookies notice a massive shadow expanding on the ground, and after performing an incredibly flashy, totally unnecessary spin mid-air, our hero finally lands. He figured one of them might be a powerful mage with an active shield barrier, and as magical energy fragments shatter in all directions, his guess is proven to be totally correct. The duo completely panics as an enemy drops straight from the heavens. Ready to end this battle quickly, our hero charges, but the mage desperately retaliates with a blast of fire magic. A single direct hit from those flames would deal critical damage, so he instantly leaps out of harm's way. This causes the fire spell to hit his teammate, setting the warrior ablaze. As the blonde partner panics to put out the flames, the stream viewers notice our hero is fighting solo with zero backup. Enraged by the fire, the giant axe wielder immediately charges forward. Yet, our skilled martial artist effortlessly dodges every single heavy swing of that massive weapon with absolute ease. Furious, he swears to end our main character. But as the hero dodges the final slash, the weapon strikes something else, leaving the warrior horrified. That massive swing slams straight into the gut of his own mage ally. Before they can even process the friendly fire, Siwon strikes the mage from behind, instantly crushing his skull. Just like that, it is a 1-versus-1 fight. Terrified by his teammate's brutal death, the bearded warrior sheds his heavy armor right onto the ground. Now half-naked and absolutely furious, he prepares to fight. Our hero realizes the guy ditched the armor to boost his speed. Without a single word, he dodges another incoming axe strike and prepares to unleash one of his signature-named attacks. He connects with a devastating kick straight to the giant's neck. But the Viking-like brute smiles, pointing out that anyone who jumps in the air eventually has to land. Our hero is caught off guard. Suddenly, a massive axe tears right through him. In fact, the strike is so incredibly powerful that it cuts the entire tower in half. That axe firepower was insane, but watch closely here. Our main character whips out his illusions, reminding this giant brute that raw strength alone is useless. Losing his mind, the giant lunges forward to smash him. Siwon smoothly slips past the blow and counters, but the warrior manages to block the strike. But the axe wielder has no idea he is just fighting a clone. while the real martial artist is already standing behind him, getting ready to make his exit. The warrior is stunned to see his opponent suddenly standing all the way over by the doorway. Sawin simply points to the cracking sounds echoing from the split tower and decides to conduct a little experiment. Our hero kicks the crumbling structure with absolute force. Terrified, the giant panics, suddenly wondering who on earth he was actually fighting this entire time. To his absolute horror, he realizes he was swinging his axe at a mere illusion. Sensing his imminent doom, the giant helplessly begs for mercy. Sawin casually walks away as the massive tower collapses directly onto his helpless opponent. He then realizes that technically, the building itself got the kill, not him. This leaves him curious, since the system did not credit him with the kill, meaning his rewards might be reduced. Once the dust finally clears, only the poor warrior's hand remains. Since there is no flat ground left, the loot chests spawn quite far away from the rubble, saving him the extra trouble of digging them out. Now, it is finally time to collect his hard-earned rewards. The warrior only drops gloves that grant a minor strength boost, but the mage, he drops rare, mysterious items our protagonist did not even know existed in this game. Inside is a bomb scroll, a curse branch, a philosopher's stone, and a single page of a book that requires all 8 pieces to unlock its true power. Equipping the mage's windproof cape, our protagonist decides to finally leave this active battleground. With the map borders steadily closing in, Siu knows that other enemy players must be heading right toward his location. He begins journeying toward the center of the map. Siwon moves fast, eager to escape this village after finding mostly useless items. He has finally mastered movement techniques, allowing him to travel way faster than before. Soon, our hero enters a high-level zone crawling with countless dangerous monsters. The system explains that the zone holds normal beasts, powerful bosses with legendary loot, and buff monsters that grant special bonuses. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoes through the trees, a sound he instantly recognizes as a monster's battle cry. A massive flying reptile is currently battling a group of players. As they fight off these flying and crawling beasts, the mage begs his warrior partner to defend, while the warrior screams at him to watch his back. Our hero is intrigued by this duo. He aims his bow, ready to strike. Trust me, you will want to see what happens next. Get ready, because we are diving right into the action as he looses his arrow. These beasts are brutal, but that warrior duo somehow holds their ground. The spellcaster even flings a beast aside using his Iceland spell. Witnessing this massive wave of monsters, our hidden sniper smiles at the thought of all that juicy loot. But while the swordsman is out there having a blast, his magic user teammate is burning through his mana reserves just to handle a single target. That is when something heavy slams right into their magic barrier. Realizing they are caught in an ambush, the mage immediately yells at the group to fall back. But the greedy warrior refuses to run since these monsters are already hovering at low health. The terrified, funny-looking mage snaps back, arguing they need to save their lives and run immediately. Watching them bicker like children on the battlefield, Sawum decides to throw some serious chaos into the mix. Just like that, he lets loose 3 arrows at once. The mage spots the incoming projectiles, but they are packed with so much power they completely shatter his barrier. Panicked, the swordsman orders his partner to raise his shield again. But the mage is completely done, arguing that their only priority right now is to run away. But the greedy swordsman insists that there is too much loot on the line to leave empty-handed. However, to his absolute horror, his magic-casting ally admits his barrier is now completely useless. So, the mage activates a fresh spell called Escrow Protect Wall, making giant stone plates rise from the ground. Even his own swordsman teammate cannot understand why he is doing this. Now watch closely, because those massive walls actually make our protagonist's job way easier. He moves in to strike without wasting a single second. The spellcaster claims this saves energy, but the warrior points out they are now completely blind to the sniper's location. Still, the funny-looking guy promises they can just run for it the second these walls vanish. But his hot-headed teammate, currently busy slicing up a snake monster, warns him that he is leaving him behind if he messes up again. Unsurprisingly, that dumb defensive choice backfires immediately. After all, special weapons like bows can easily loop arrows right over those static obstacles. The swordsman demands he drop the barrier, but the mage whines that it takes 5 minutes to cool down. Seeing his opening, our main character pulls out a special item. He quickly fuses an exploding scroll, set to detonate in 10 seconds, onto one of his powerful lightning arrows. Siwon does not hesitate. He rises, locks onto his targets, and lets the deadly projectile fly. The shot gracefully loops over the tall barrier, landing dead center right in front of the pair. The countdown hits 0, and the scroll detonates with a massive blast. The explosive shockwave is so insanely destructive, it tears the stone barricade to pieces. Siwon is surprised by his own firepower, but quickly crushes a stray bug trying to bite his leg. The blast leaves the funny-looking spellcaster completely roasted, but a single hand suddenly bursts from the debris. The swordsman crawls out, furious at his partner's absolute stupidity for nearly getting him killed. You and I both saw this coming, right? Trapped under the rubble, the poor warrior faces a lethal shot as Siwon points out that bad teammates will literally get you killed. As his screen fades, the swordsman realizes that picking the right teammate is a crucial survival skill. Knowing there is no escape, he calmly accepts his unavoidable defeat. Since the loot chest spawns right away, our main character realizes the mage died first during that massive explosion. Opening the swordsman's stash, he finds some sword techniques, a movement guide, and advanced footwork scrolls. Unfortunately, as a martial artist, none of these class-specific skills are of any use to him. Still, it is not a total waste. He loots a special ring of Toho, which boosts his magic resistance. Right after, a second chest drops close by, leaving the dead mage's items ripe for the picking. C is thrilled to grab a solid gold escrow necklace from the chest. There's also a rare Circle 4 spellbook inside, but it is way too advanced for him to master right now. Suddenly, a few basic monsters sneak up behind him. After easily clearing them out, the martial artist seriously pities the dead duo for struggling so hard against such weak trash mobs. But as the defeated creatures dissipate, our main character spots some shiny items lying on the cold ground. He loots a tier of lamia, a rare ingredient used for Nero's magic, along with an agility-boosting necklace. He quickly equips the necklace for a nice stat increase, but has absolutely no idea what to do with the crafting material. Later that evening, during a quiet meditation session, the protagonist starts realizing that defeating those giant boss monsters must grant an incredibly powerful buff to whoever slays them. However, before rushing to hunt one down, he has to evaluate his current combat power to see if he can solo it. Plus, he must watch out for other players who likely have the exact same plan. As the second day of the survival match begins, Sayo checks the stats. 60 players were already eliminated, and since he secured 8 kills himself, he is pretty happy with his score. Right now, his main goal is rushing directly to the center of the map, but this arena is brutally hot compared to the last match, making him wish he had waited until sunset to begin this exhausting trek. Suddenly, a large shadow looms overhead. His pro-gamer instincts tell him that this massive bird is carrying a legendary supply drop. The moment the chest hits the ground, he sprints forward to claim it. This chest is massive and totally unique. It promises incredibly powerful loot, but there is a major catch. It will ping his live location to every other player on the map every 30 minutes for the rest of the day. Now he faces a massive, high-risk choice. But since there is zero risk of actual elimination in this particular match, he figures he might as well go all in. And with that, Jin Siyun cracks open the massive chest, completely blown away by the loot. That is where we leave it for today. See you guys in the next wild chapter.